Okay, so good morning once again, and glad to meet once again here today. So before we go into today's, just like yesterday, if you have any questions from what we did yesterday and you want to ask, maybe take some few minutes to do that, then recap on what we did yesterday, and we move on to today, if that's okay. Yeah, sure. I think so. I hope so too. All right. So we'll just move straight into what we are doing today. Let me share my screen. This is my screen showing. Is it okay? Okay. All right. Thank you. So, pardon me. The last three shouldn't be there. So basically today we'll be looking at some omissions from yesterday, and then ITD, a bit into ITD. We'll also look at monitoring from both satellite and then ground observation, and then try to link this to the models or the NWP model that we'll be using for our forecasting. How we can even use the satellite and ground observation to validate sort of the models that we'll be using for forecasting. Okay, so there are some things that I want to point out that probably were left out yesterday during the pressure and then the wind um, analysis or interpretation of the wind and pressure charts. So I talked about going through pressure for the past to see how it is behaving over the period, not just taking the value at the time and thinking it to be a high pressure or a low pressure area. Another thing that should also be on the back of the mind of a forecaster is the diurnal variation in pressure, in the sense that if you know when pressure is supposed to be high or when pressure is supposed to be low, and the model is telling you that a time where usually pressures are supposed to be high, you're seeing very low pressures around that time, then there's a possibility of a change that is causing that kind of drop or decrease in pressure around that time. And so you'd want to investigate and see what probably would cause that. These are all ways you can predict some weather conditions. For instance, pressures actually start rising in the morning. So by 10 a.m. to 11, please 1 minute, excuse me, let me mute this. Sorry about that. Okay, so like I was saying, if pressure starts rising in the morning, by 10, 11 a.m., we get the highest pressure for the day, and then it starts dropping from there till around 1500 to 1600 or 3 to 4 p.m. We get the lowest and starts rising again. So that's a dynamic variation in pressure within the day, how pressures behave. So if we are supposed to be getting low pressures around 3 or 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and the models are indicating that around that time pressures are rather rising. We are getting higher pressures around that time. We want to investigate and see why those things will be happening. Maybe there could be lower pressures before that time when we're supposed to be having higher pressures, maybe in the morning. The model is predicting lower pressures, indicating there's a possibility of some rising in ocean around that time, causing cloud formation and eventual precipitation or something like that. The moment where the clouds build up or the rain gets to a location, pressures tend to increase. So before a rainstorm gets into a location, pressures ahead of the storm should be dropping. But the moment it gets there, pressures now rise. And so if you are seeing lower pressures at the time where you're supposed to be seeing high pressures, and then you are seeing higher pressures at the time where you're supposed to be seeing lower pressures. You would want to investigate and see what will probably be causing those changes. And they will all lead you to forecasting some of these weather elements that could possibly be happening around that time, which will lead to those variations that you see in the day. So it's very important to know at the back of the mind how pressure behaves within the day, so that if the models are indicating something which is different from the norm, you would want to investigate and see what is actually causing that kind of phenomenon. And then on the 700 hectopascal level too, you should be looking out for the African easterly wave. The trough part of the African easterly wave usually will bring with rainfall and cloudy conditions. So once you're seeing that, that is one of the sure ways of forecasting. If we see the trough, most of the time you will get rainfall within that particular area, especially if the moisture within the atmosphere is okay or very good. Then once you're seeing the trough within your area, you should expect rainfall. So it's good to try and locate the African easterly wave on the 700 hectopascal level or wind chart. And then the areas where you're getting the ridge, those are usually fair weather conditions within those areas. So this will also help you know what kind of weather you should be anticipating for a particular region. And then you should also have an idea how temperature behaves within the day and how it even links with pressure within the day. So when you're getting higher pressures, temperatures will be um, dropping around that time. When temperatures are increasing, you're getting lower pressures. I said the highest pressure we get is somewhere around 10 to 11 a.m. That is when the earth is actually warming up. And so it's not too hot around that time. Temperature is not too high around that time. But around 2, 3, 4 p.m., when we get the maximum temperature for the day, that is when we also get the lowest pressure for the day. So they are kind of inversely proportional during the day. So you want to have this too at the back of your mind. And if the models are indicating something different, you want to investigate and see what is causing those things. So if there's a rain in the afternoon, then that means temperatures will also be dropping in the afternoon when you're supposed to be getting higher temperatures. So these will also alert you on finding out some of these weather conditions that will probably be missing or causing some of these variations or changes in the norm that we see each day. Another thing we should also look out for is temperature inversion. I know tetragram is actually going to be topic treated, so you could easily identify inversion at the surface on the thermograph. And this is a very good way to forecast. If you're seeing a temperature inversion on the surface, you can just close your eye and say there's nothing going to happen in that area. Virtually fair weather for that particular place. And so it's good to locate some of these things to help you make informed decisions of what weather you should expect in your area. And the last thing I want to point out is the moisture depth. And so we are looking at surface to the top of the atmosphere. If you have moist winds from the surface rising all the way to the mid portions, then in that case, if you are getting favorable conditions and then clouds are forming, they become deeper, more convective, and they can produce more rainfall. And so you'd want to get a higher moisture depth in order to have a deeper cloud formation and then its subsequent rainfall or any precipitation of any kind. And so shallow moisture depth will lead to shallow cloud formation and then shortly rainfall accelerated. But if you're having a very deep moisture depth, then or higher moisture depth, then obviously you expect deeper clouds to form and eventual heavy or moderate rainfall, whatever precipitation that we're expecting to also happen. All right, for ITD, we are going to look at the position of the ITD using the 15-degree viewpoint temperature and then surface winds, and then also using a line of symmetry to drop that's on a pressure chart. and also identify the ITB on a satellite image. Would also want to look at the weather zones of the ITB and what each of these zones will actually bring into our region. And then also look at the rate of increase or decrease from the previous position. So just like when we're talking about pressure, you don't really treat the ITB as a static value. You have to monitor it throughout the day and see how it will be behaving within the day. It will usually not be at one value throughout the day. We have it increasing and dropping within the day. So you want to know how it increases, the rate at which it decreases or increases. This will also inform you on what to expect. So with the estimation of the ITB, if you pick the viewpoint chart, like you know from the inset, the GFS model from Noah, you would see the viewpoint chart at 2 meters. So just pick that one and you can easily locate the 15-degree viewpoint temperature from there, which will tell you where your ITV position will be located. You could also use the surface winds to determine where the ITB will be located on a chart. So if you're getting where the moist winds and the dry winds are meeting, these are surface winds. And so you shouldn't be using 850, 700 hectopascal level winds to locate ITB. ITB is a surface feature. So at best, if you have 2 meter winds, that will be okay. But most of the time, you don't get models giving you 2 meter winds, but you can get 10-meter winds. So that would be ideal for locating ITB using winds. So where the moist winds from the ocean meet the dry winds from the continent, that will be your ITB position. And then there's also another way you can use the pressure chart to determine where your ITB will be. So you just draw a line of symmetry around the trough. So throughout Africa, where the equatorial trough will be located, you can just draw a line of symmetry within that trough zone, and it will also tell you where the ITB position will be like at. Because low pressures attract winds from high pressure areas. The northern African high pressure centers will be moving winds towards the equatorial trough. Same way, the southern hemispheric higher pressure will also be moving winds towards the equatorial region. So where the two of them will be meeting will actually converge around where you have the trough within the equatorial region. And so most of the time, ITB will just be reflecting on the equatorial trough, just in the Western Africa. Or if it moves inland, ITB will also be moving inland. If it drops towards the south, then ITB will also be dropping. So you can use this to determine ITB position. But one thing we should know is that I, ITB position estimation from, I think there's a feedback somewhere. Okay. ITB estimation is actually not the is actually not the exact position where the ITB will be located. If you're using the 15-degree viewpoint or the surface wind or even the trough to estimate your ITB or even satellite images to estimate your ITB, you're not getting the actual position of the ITB. You would get the actual one if you get ground observation from all the countries and you use the 15 degrees just like they have recorded on the ground to locate where the ITB will be at. So in the dry season, we are able to determine the actual position of the ITB within Ghana because the atmosphere gets quite dry, and so the 15 degrees will most of the time be within Ghana, and so you can easily locate the ITB in Ghana. And so in that case, the weather that we pick from across the country will help us estimate where the ITB position will be at. But in the case where it is not in Ghana and you have to rely on other countries' data, most of the time the data will be missing, and so you'd have to make an estimation and assume that the 15-degree viewpoint will be somewhere um, in the country, which may not necessarily be the case. And so these are estimations, not the actual value of ITB, but at least it gives you an inference or idea of where the position will be at. Another thing is the satellite image, how to use the satellite to determine positions of the ITB. So Areas to the north of the ITB will have very dry weather conditions. Areas to the south will have active weather happening. And so if we have a satellite image and we're seeing that um, rainstorms or cloud formations are actually towards a particular area, you can have your ITB just above the area where the clouds or the storms are building. And then areas to the north of that one will just be your dry areas. And so you can use satellite images to tell where ITB will also be located. Right, so that brings us to the weather zones of the ICD. So you have the zone A, B, C, and then D. You can break C to C1 and C2. So most of you are already aware of this. Zone A is just areas to the north of the ITB. So if ITB is somewhere around, let's say, 10 degrees north with respect to the Greenwich meridian, then it means that anything above Tamale, any place above Tamale, will be getting drier conditions. So Tamale is just about 10 degrees north. So if that's your ITD, then any place above Tamale will be getting drier conditions. In that case, you wouldn't expect anything to be happening around those areas, just fair weather conditions, mostly dry. If the northern hemisphere high pressures are very intense around that time, then you would even be expecting dusty conditions or hazy weather over those areas. So most of the time, to the north of the ITB. There's basically nothing happening there. There's very clear skies, very few clouds in the atmosphere over those areas. But to zone B, which is immediate south of the ITB, we consider just the ITB position to about 1 degree south of the ITB. Within that zone, we consider it as our zone B. That is where you're having a mixture of the moist and then the dry winds. You can have some cloud formation within these areas, but then the cloud is limited, and then the moisture supply to those areas are also limited. So you don't get so much of the activities within zone B. You can have some cloud, you can have some rain, but then the intensity and then the distribution within the area will be less. But just south of that will bring us to zone C, and that is where we get very active weather conditions happening. So the thunder, the rain, convective cloud formations, and all of that will happen within the zone C. So very active weather is expected within that area. So every day before you come up with your forecast, you look at the position of the ITB and see which areas that you will be looking out for active weather and which areas will be um, devoid of active weather. So this will just give you an indication of areas where you should be focusing on so that you don't spend the whole time looking at some areas and seeing the conditions they're trying to interpret the pressure or winds at various levels for those particular areas. When the ITB can just give you an indication that today you should be focusing more on the southern part of the country. For instance, at the moment, ITB ranges between 9.5 and then 11.5 around this time. So at a glance, I just um, take my mind off the upper east and upper west regions because those are within the zone A of the ITB. Focus more on the forest and coastal areas because this will be within the zone C of the ITB. So more of the active weather will be found within these places. And so we focus more, try to see what conditions will be favorable for rainfall within that area and then predict the rains for those places and not focus on the northern portions of the country where they basically be having some dry conditions. And then when you move away from zone C, you're going into zone B. Zone B will also have some clouds, all right, but most of the time you get very high pressures in zone B. And so even though the clouds will form, we'll get cloudy weather the whole day, but because of the high pressures there, they are not able to precipitate that much. So you could have some drizzle, slight rain here and there, but not really much rainfall, thunder, or convective activity happening within zone B. This happens mostly around late July into August. That is what brings the break between the rainfall season that we have here in the south. So March, April, May, June, we are having a major rainfall season. Later part of July into August, we have a break there, what we call the little dry season here in Ghana. And then we go back into the minor rainfall season in September, October, and November. So around that time, most parts of southern Ghana will be in the zone D of the ITD. So very high pressures are built here, will get cloudy weather the whole day, blocking the sun from getting to the surface. So quite cool weather condition for the southern portions of the country around this time. But very little rainfall is experienced within the period because of the higher pressures that we have around that time. So if you know what zone you are falling within, you could tell what kind of weather you should be expecting in that particular area before you actually look at the chart and see which of them is supporting rainfall or any weather activity within your area. And then we go to the rate of increase or decrease from the previous position. So let's say we have ITB at 10 degrees north today. Then tomorrow we see ITB dropping to about 7 degrees north. So that sudden drop in ITB, sharp drop from 10 to 7, will tell you that activities will also be moving sharply from the north toward the south. And so if today we are seeing ITB at 10 degrees north and we're expecting rainfall within the forest areas, coastal parts of the country, and tomorrow we see ITB dropping to 7, quite sharply, then it means we are basically taking away the whole of the forest zone out of our active weather area. But once ITB drops to 7, then it means our active zone will be around 5 degrees and below. And so we'll just be looking at the coastal part and maybe over the ocean. So we just neglect all the areas in the forest zone. So this will also tell you whether it's an increase. If it's 10 today and it increases to say 13, what it means is that if today we are getting the rains in the south, that sharp increase will also push most of the activities to towards the north. And so you'll be looking at areas in the forest transition into the northern regions of the country to be getting rainfall. So you look at all these things and see how they will affect your weather before you even go into the charts, individual charts, weather pressure, winds, or whatever chart you want to look out for before to come up with a forecast for your area. And then we'll also be looking at satellite monitoring. This is a very